Hello guys and girls, this is Captain Obvious presenting to you Strategic Command WW2 World at War. That's quite a mouthful of a title for quite a game. Before I start talking about this brilliant strategy game, I want to head off and give you a disclaimer. If you are into this kind of game, I need to warn you. Okay, it will rob you of your sleep. It will make your brain squirm and it will addict you. That's a guarantee. So do not play this game if you hate complex games, if you hate difficult games and need an I win button, and you have no patience or interest to learn by reading the manual. So, there are two of them actually, and because one is not enough. So, just that ahead, that you know what you're into if you plan to play this game. But I can assure you that it's worth your time if you like these kind of games. It's a really, really deep and challenging game. It has been developed by Slitherine and Fury Software. They have a whole series of these strategic command games, and this one is focusing at the Second World War. Let's look into it right away. I'll start a single-player campaign. We have several campaigns at start. It's a very historical accurate game, and even though there is some liberties, of course, in the way you play the game, it will develop a little bit different. On the grand scale, actually, there's you can't easily change history. Let's put it like that. So we have different scenarios to work with. We can start at the September 1st, 1939, which is the official start of the Second World War according to history books. These days, it's the day of the invasion of Germany into Poland. We can play a scenario from 1942, Axis High Tide it's called. It starts around 4th June 1942, and then there's a scenario where the turn of the tide, where actually the Allies gain the upper hand, Russia will stop the invasion, there will be the fall of the 6th Army in Stalingrad, etc., etc. in 1943, and the things start to change for the Axis. So we'll just start in 1942 Axis High Tide. I'm going to play. There's a couple of victory conditions here. So Axis decisive victory would be if the Axis controls Berlin, Paris, London, Manchester, Moscow, Stalingrad, Cairo, Tokyo, Seoul, Chongqing, Delhi, Manila, and Canberra. The Allies will achieve a decisive victory if they, by end of the scenario, in 45, the Allies control Berlin, Rome, Paris, London, and all adjacent axes, Moscow, Washington, D.C., Tokyo, Seoul, Chongqing, and Delhi. So, let's play the campaign here. I am going to play as the Allies. You can actually choose one side here, but usually you play all the nations of each side. But to make things easier, I will going to hand over the control over England, France, US, China, and India to the AI, and I'm going to play as Mother Russia. For the difficult settings, if you play this game for the very first time, I hardly recommend to play on Green or Novice. It's difficult enough, at least for me. Just to make things easier. You can also ramp up the difficulty here, which will give the computer some decisive bonuses like spotting, meaning the range of how far the AI can see your units, which makes a huge difference for it when it's plotting its turns and calculating its turns. You can add 2 experience, meaning that your units that come to the field are much more powerful, and the military production points here is basically the income that the AI will get. It will get a boost of 20%, which is quite a lot. you know, if you know the game inside out, you might try that and even fail because the AI is pretty good in this game. So I'm going to play with intermediate here. Let's go for it. So we have a couple of options here. Like if you, for example, I don't know, you don't want to use 3D units, but the correct military signs here, the tank unit, and we have here a battleship sign, which is usually debarred as a BB. Or you use the 3D units for some eye candy, which I prefer actually. All right, there's some advanced settings, but I won't bore you with that now. Okay, let's start it. Now, this turn, how does this work? It's a turn-based game. So the first turn is always the allies, the axis that moves, and then it's the allies' turn. Usually, a turn takes about, historically, in a time scale, about 2 weeks, whereas the summer months are shorter and or more turns, and as opposed to the winter time, which is a little bit covers longer distances. So what we're now seeing here is actually the axis turn. As you can see, now we have the battle at Midway here display, which is accurate 42. History has shown that it will end with a major victory of the US forces. The Japanese will lose a majority of their fleet in this battle. We'll see if we can repeat this in this scenario. Japan, it's currently Japan's turns, as you can see. This is China, mainland China. That was it for Japan. Now we have Germany. Germany moving here, and no, it's probably mixed here. All right. Anyhow, yeah, still Japan turns. Japan's turn. Still the Midway scenario here. This part of the world, you see the world map here, and this is the coordinates on the map. Here in left corner, you see what the AI is doing right now. They're moving in the carriers. So carriers attacking with their airplanes, the naval units here. Now we are at the Russian Eastern Front here, with Germany still advancing very strong, very closely. Here Stalingrad, I talked about. We have here also historically correct North Africa. This is Rommel and his Afrika Corps that is attacking there. Then we have, yeah, against the British. We know history at El Alamein. Rommel will be beaten and thrown back. There we have Sevastopol and heavy rail artillery bombarding the fortified positions here in the Black Sea. So at this point, basically, as the scenario says, it's at excess high tide. So Germany very advanced, is very powerful. They have very experienced, strong, powerful units, lots of tank units, very high mobility. So you can see they're punching through the Soviet lines here pretty efficiently. But it's also close to the turning point. So Russia will, or the Soviet Union will ramp up its production. It's a very has a lot of industrial capacity and a lot of manpower. So basically, as a Soviet player, you'll try to capitalize on that, trying to push your research, and trying to slow the advance of the Germans long enough that you can keep hold of your industrial centers and bring your immense industrial power to bear and keep up with the technological technology-wise with the Axis. There we are about. This is yeah, still Northern Africa, which is until the East Africa is still under the control of the British. supporting units from the Balkans. We saw there for a second that was still central China. Lost yet another army there to the German advance. Pushing hard here. One thing you need to know about this game is, though many things are heavily scripted, the AI, no turn will turn out twice. If I would start this turn again, it will develop slightly different. Similar, but still slightly different, because all outcomes of battles are not predetermined. There's a certain small but existing factor of luck in battles, which on the grand scale can make a difference. Then there's weather, simulated weather. If you have good weather or bad weather will influence your advance. If winter strikes early or late, all these things. There are small factors that are interchangeable, and the AI will react to that and react differently to certain situations. And it is pretty smart and powerful. So it will flank, it will focus fire on units. It's overall a very, very well done artificial intelligence computer opponent. So we have central China, they're replenishing units, allies again, Japanese reinforce these events. British Command, Ray Dawson. What I like is these pictures here. They put in a very nice touch. Malta is still on the hand of the Mediterranean. We'll limit the supply lines of the Axis here. It's a very powerful fortress there that's hard to take. And we have Madagascar and rain. You just saw the change there in weather. If it's rainy, units will move slower and it will have effect. All right, we have a combat loss summary here. First Marine medium bombers has been destroyed by the Japanese. There we saw that, and quite a number of German, Russian, Soviet armies have been destroyed. 6th Army has been destroyed, 40th, 50th, and 57th Army, and the English 8th Corps has been destroyed. Military activity summary: Japanese reinforces Burmese front. British commandos raid Ostend, we saw that. Malta hinders Axis supply in Mediterranean, and Axis forces in Madagascar suffer from a lack of supplies. Now we have intelligence reports. We'll randomly spot units here of the enemy. And now we have strategic advice here, maintaining British national morale. For as long as the enemy hold all the following locations, we must ensure that we have 3 or more units within 10 hexes of Birmingham, Paris, Brest, Brussels, Cherbourg, Le Havre, Hamburg. If we do not do so, then fear of an invasion will cause the national morale to fall by 500 points per turn. Recommendation: keep 3 or more units within 10 hexes of Birmingham until an invasion of Europe has been successfully launched. So that gives you some idea how you should treat this. All right, it's our turn. Now, first of all, let me explain a little bit the UI and what we're seeing here. We're seeing here actually the British Islands here. It's the UK's turn right now. And so we have on the left-hand side, we have an overview of all Axis nations, the major nations. There are more nations, of course, there, but these are the major nations that are actually able to act independently. They have their own industrial production. We have the UK, we have France, this is actually Vichy France, we have US with 400 points, we have Soviet with 400 production points, this is China 150, and India, which is still a British colony. This number here over indicates the overall industrial capacity. There's only one resource in this game, and this is these MPP. You use it to spend it for everything from research, purchasing units, reinforcing units, investing in diplomacy, etc., etc. So you have to work with what you get with these military production points. So the UK produces 355. Like I said, US and Soviet all about a little bit more. They are in the course of ramping up their industrial base. In general, the US and the Soviet have the biggest industrial base in the game, which is historically accurate. Then we have, let's go, what is this ribbon up here? You see that is the national moral. National moral, if it turns down and is very low, your nation will suffer in terms of moral. You get moral losses, which will impact your combat effectiveness of your units. But also if you lose national moral very strongly, your nation can give up and lose. And so it will lose if you lose all your national moral objectives in a country. I'll come to that later. And your capitals, your nation might surrender. Then we have here a couple of tabs. We have the wall maps. We have purchase, new units that have been produced. You can deploy them then. The diplomacy screen, research, and reports. I'll come to that later. Then we have here the date. It's 18th June 1942 right now, middle of June. This is the next turn button. We have some options here. Then below we have the info screen. Whatever I'm pointing at, it will show me information there on units, etc. You can command units, get information, upgrade tiles, etc., etc. And we have the map itself, of course. All right, let's look at the different tabs here for a second. We have in the wall maps, you see all the nations in the game actually, and can declare war. You can actually see to which faction they are leaning, either Axis or Allies. You can see which nations are actually actively participating in the war. And you can also see that's the strategic map here. So we're seeing here the whole world, actually how it's divided. We'll have here the Russian front here, lots of red stars being pushed back by the advance of the Germans right now. We have the Mediterranean, the northern Egypt, the Middle East here, where the Brits are facing off the German advance from Rommel. We have the China theater, where Japan is pushing, but not kind of they're not getting far actually here. They're being efficiently stopped. We have the India, where actually Japan is also trying to push in. As you remember, one of the strategic goals is to get Delhi. So as an Axis player, you would have to find a way to get Delhi if you want to have a decisive victory. This is Japan. This is the Japanese fleet with Japan here. I have a couple of Russian units. There is still peace or a non-aggression pact between Japan and Russia, so there is no invasion there, so no fighting there right now. And the whole kind of this whole area here is under Japanese control. It's a Greater Japanese Prosperity Sphere, what they called it. Basically, why did Japan take these parts here in Southeast Asia? Well, it's resource rich. There's lots of oil and rubber to be had, which is essential, and iron and all kinds of stuff actually, which is essential for the war efforts actually, and military goods. That's why they took this here actually. Manchuria, Korea, etc. So it's the peak, like I said. Pearl Harbor happened already. Here's the Battle of Midway we see here. We have Japan is currently here in Papua New Guinea. And advancing. If we play historical, like the US will do the island hopping and get at Guadalcanal. There will be big fights and start the island hopping, then clearing up to Japan basically. Well, we're playing as Russia here right now because just for demonstration purposes. Okay, that's the strategic situation here. Like I said, historically accurate. We have a convoy map. Convoys will show basically the red roads are the allies convoys. As you can see, England is being supplied from Africa, and here Iraq, India, Egypt, South Africa, Australia. So these are basically supply routes from the US and Canada over here, even Russia as well. And these are the access is supplied by Norway and Sweden here, which is under access control. And Japan will receive supplies from, as you can see, lots of supply roads going up here. It's also possible to raid those and hamper MPP production here. That's why Japan needs to control this area with his fleet. If it's contested by allies, they will use quite a proportion of their income, and their movement in Southeast Asia is also hindered because they need to send troops from Japan here in here. So yeah, that's the convoy map. And that's basically, you can also see here, let me close the strategic map. Let's close this. So if you click on one nation, you get a little bit more information here. You can see actually what their production base is, where do they get their production from. So you can see the Brits have a lot of harbors that will give them their production, whereas Russia, that's UK allies, because I selected them here. Let's go there. As you can see, Russia gets its industry base here from the Ural area around Stalingrad, etc. And has also lots of ports, some oil, some mines. That's that. Then the US here. So it has also about lots of harbors on the west and east coast, lots of industry, lots of oil. Yeah, so you can see that's their industrial base. Yeah. All right, let's see. There was another map I can't see. Let me see. All right. I think that's this. Strategy map. No, that wasn't it. Anyways, the reports. Sorry, we get later. So that was the war maps. Then purchase, pretty easy here. So I'm playing Russia, so I can only. So I have these 400. No, sorry, I need to search up. Let me go back here as Russia. Purchase. So we have 400 MPP to spend here for units. Basically how that works is basically you see all the different unit types here. You select one to build, for example, a tank here. And you have different units you can choose from. You can basically spend upgrades on them that you have researched to improve their combat and attack and defense values and the capabilities. And actually, units take time to produce. They are not appearing magically in your production, in your placement tab or on the map, but it takes time to produce them. Ships can take many years to produce, whereas small infantry units are produced within a month or two. So you need to factor that in if you start producing units. Yeah. So that's about production here. And units, we don't have any new units to deploy right now. So there's nothing showing there. But if you have some units here, you could deploy them somewhere here on the map. Then we have the diplomacy field. It's quite simple. You can start influencing other nations, trying to pull them over to your side by investing into diplomacy chits. You can invest maximum of 3 chits per turn, and then you get a certain percentage chance for them to get a number between 0 or 5 and 20% of influence change towards your faction. And if they're at 100%, they will join your faction and actually deploy on your side. Now, of course, there are nations that have a certain affiliation to Axis or allies, and thus are easier to be convinced to join your war efforts. So every nation can invest in diplomacy. Then we have research. We have basically here different unit types you can equip and develop with infantry weapons, anti-tank weapons, advanced tanks, advanced fighters, heavy bombers, naval weaponry, long-range aircraft, advanced subs, artillery weapons, ground attack weapons, mobility, anti-submarine warfare, anti-defense, anti-aircraft defense. Then we have, these are kind of a different kind of research you can do still. That's why it's clustered over here. Command and control, infantry warfare, armored warfare. It's like doctrines you can change. This is like technology and this is doctrines. Naval amphibious warfare, which will boost basically moral, for example, and for these and give them specific unit. And then we have a cluster here that will kind of works nationwide. We have spying intelligence. This will do two things. It will give you real units of the enemy on the map, but it will also kind of show improve your research by a certain margin and hamper research on the opposing side. And so it's dual. And we have logistics, which is pretty clear. Moving units around becomes cheaper. And then we have production technology, which means units become cheaper. The unit cost will be cheaper if we develop this massively. And industrial technology will increase your MPP output per turn. Very important, this part, actually, especially for nations which have a big industrial base. Industrial technology is an absolute must there. All right. Then we have a table where you can see in your faction what nation has developed what tier of this kind of research. And then we have the reports, which basically gives you lots of statistics about your nation. You can see here the production value. Land production has we see land, air, and naval units, how many units there are deployed. We see the different capacity we have the nations here. You saw this. There's here has a lot of naval production, etc., etc. So you can see this. Oh, that's basically it. It's very balanced right now. See graphs here. Convoy raiding, strategic bombing, research diplomacy, plunder, MPP production here, lost units. Since we start the scenario here, the graph looks a little bit wonky here, but we just lost 276 points worth of MPP. That was the 6 armies that we lost here. And national moral, that suffers here. For England. Same here. For us, that's our 6 armies. We lost 1,400 MPP. That's it, 3 turns worth or 6 weeks worth of production here. What we lost actually to the German advance. Okay, so there you get some information on the status of what's happening here. Now let's look at the gritty details here. How does it work? And basically, let's start with the tiles we see. We see these hex fields, and all these hex fields all have different kind of properties. You can see here, for example, we have a river here. It's owned in the USSR, the Allies alignment, no movement cost here. And there's a river in the edge of the southeast here. And you have a max entrench defense bonus. You have a max entrenchment bonus of 2. You can entrench the unit 2 times, basically, which will give it a defense modifier. Now let's look at, for example, this field here, which is let's look at the forest here. It's also part of the USSR, but it's occupied by Germany right now. It gives an additional +1 movement to get through here. and it gives you already defense bonuses. So this is strategic, very valuable, or tactical valuable information if you fight. Where does your unit fight? Do I attack a unit over a river? I get a malus. Is the unit standing in a forest? Is the unit on hills? Is it a city? Is it just flat land? Is it snowing? Is it raining? All these will have influence on the outcome of the battle. So you need to keep that in mind. Let's look a little bit at the units we see here. We have three groups of units actually. We have naval units, ships. We have land units, like all kinds of various land units actually, and we have air units. So let's look at the tank here. We have the first Russian tank division or army here. Let's look at the close properties here. First tanks, it has 1 star of experience here. It's an advanced tank level 1. So it's already an advanced tank, but I can advance it to level 2 already. If I spend MPPs, I can upgrade it, which will give it additional points here in attack values and defense values. As general, this is the spotting range, how far they can look and see. The strike range is 1 field. De-entrenchment, if they attack an entrenched unit, it will de-entrench it by 1 point. It will demoralize a unit by 35, which is important value actually, and its number of strikes is 1 right now. Its target type is a tank, and it applies full zone of control in neighboring hexes. Soft targets are like infantry units. Hard targets are tanks, artillery, strategic, artillery, rocket, light armor. It's like motorized infantry. And tanks, fighters, bombers, strategic, kamikaze, naval, carrier, subs, transport. All these attack values it will have against. If it's on the attack, it will apply these values, and on the defense it will have this kind of set of defense. Honors will show if you have won a combat here against a unit. It will show here up. I think if we choose a German unit, for example, this one, no, it doesn't have. It's also advanced tanks 2. You can see here has anti-air. It's a very powerful unit here actually. This yellow, you can see also here basically the colors of these. You see that here it has a yellow 1. 10 is usually the strength, normal full strength value of a unit. That's basically, you see at a glance what you see. You see what group it belongs to. You see it has 1 elite status, 1 point elite star. That's why it has it can be upgraded to a strength of 11. It has 2 1 1 1 mobility, 1 anti-aircraft, 2 level 2 tank. Here, that's this number here, so you can see it, and the number is yellow, meaning it has very high moral. White is normal moral, and 3, this gray, will show it has low moral. I'll explain that later on. As you can see here, this tank has strength 11 from 10, supply 4, which is pretty low actually right now. I'll explain that also later. Action points 5 of 6. 2 strikes, a readiness of 84%, moral of 65, and 0 entrenchment. Now if we look at this one, let me see, this tank, you see it has supply 7, strength 8 from 10, it's under strength, 5 action points, 1 strike. Readiness only 50%, this is why it's gray, meaning it has very low combat effectiveness. Moral is still okay, and entrenchment of 2, so it hasn't moved much. So it's entrenched here. Yeah, that's a tank unit. We have very mobile cavalry units that are kind of infantry units that have a high mobility. Then a big difference is between armies and corps. Corps-based army units are basically your strongest infantry unit you have. and it has a, let's compare here for a second. The infantry, as you can see here, it has a soft value. It's with infantry weapons 1, it has a soft attack or base soft attack 5, hard 3, 2, 2, 2, and 4, 2. Now, and very important, it has a movement. It has a 3 action points. All right. So let's look at this corps unit, which is in military terms 1 tier lower, smaller unit than the army. Look at the corps. We have same soft attack, but weaker attack against other targets, and also the soft defenses and hard defenses lower. So it has less defense and slightly less attack against certain kind of units. Target type is also hard. But the big difference is it has 4 action points. It's more mobile, which is very important. You cannot underestimate movement in this game, how important it is to flank different units, etc., or capture that city where you usually don't get into with your army, or do that last strike to vanquish an enemy unit. So that is very important to keep in mind. Now we about supply values, very important number here. Supply is basically, in military terms, how efficient your units actually can fight. If you have a high supply value, your units are getting all the material they need. They have better morale. They strike harder, opposed to low supply values, which will have the opposite effect. And you can actually, supply is basically degrading from cities. So you see, for example, here in the Saratov, we have supply value of 10. Next field is 9, 8, 7. And it will actually, supply will be just lose 1 point on roads, but it will deter much quicker the farther you get away. As you can see, 7, 6, 5, it will degrade much stronger in areas where there are no roads and railroads. So this dotted line here is a railroad, the continuous line is a road. So I need to keep that in mind as well when you see about supplies. Then also your headquarter units will define your supply. Headquarter will help boost your supply. So it's always smart to have them in or close to cities to give a better supply situation. Now this is a supply situation this turn, and if I hit it a second time, I can see actually what supply would looks like if I, let's say, would happen to advance until here. I would have next turn I have a supply value of 3 over here if I get that far, or if I go into this field, degrades very heavily to 5 already. So you will always want to have your units placed on fields with high supply. Do not make the mistake to get greedy. I want to destroy that unit, and you move on a very low supply field like 3 or 2. You won't have any combat efficiency. Your units will be destroyed very quickly. You'll lose morale very quickly. So keep them always close and attached, and that's another something different, also important here. Let me switch to manual attachment. You can see here this general unit is this is the command range, or rather, this is the command range of this unit here, this general Valutin, the headquarters, and you see all the units it can possibly attach, meaning bring it under its command. It has a command rating of 6, so it can basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 can command 6 units. It should 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where's that? It should have a 6 unit. Why doesn't it have a 6 unit? Oh well. So you have these attached, these units, meaning that they are under direct command and will fight more efficiently. A unit that has no attachment to any unit whatsoever, for example, I don't want to fight with this one, I detach it and attach this one, so I have these frontline units attached. Or let's say I'm not fighting with this one, I want to, let's say, have a more efficient bomber strike. I'll attach this unit under his direct command, the 121st medium bombers. So this is so very important to attach your units before you fight to make them more efficient in combat. For example, let's look how combat is being calculated. Just superficial, let's say we have here my 21st USS Army, and I want to attack here the Hungary Corps, the 3rd Corps of Hungary. Now we'll see, what do I see? I have, if I attack, you see there this little red box on the below. You see that if I attack it, I would receive 1 damage, or at least that's an estimate of the combat result. It's not exact. It can be different by 1 point or another, even more. It's just an estimate based on the known values, known information I have. So in this case, if I attack it, I'll would do 3 damage to it, and this unit would do 1 damage to me. Now we see there 25% in the red box, which means we have that's the bonus attack value if you haven't moved. You get, if you move and then attack, you don't get the prepared strike bonus. So that's one thing. Then we have a high readiness and moral, so that's not many restrictions there on our combat modifiers. And the Hungary Corps has a level of 1 of entrenchment, so it gets 1 defense value against it. So just for testing purpose, I'm going to attack it now to show you how that would look like. So very simple. So as you saw, I attacked it. Strength modifier was reduced by 1. This one he lost 3 as predicted. So I can continue to bomb this unit here and attack it. I can, for example, let me see how does let's focus our fire here. I could bomb this one, but before that I need to set our fighters to escort duty. So I can have interceptors who will attack me, and now I have escorts here. I will escort the medium bomber. It would have been smarter to do that first because it will reduce the entrenchment and thus increase the damage. Okay, so you can see how where I attack, what the difference is here. So yeah, this is basically how combat works. Like I said, very important to keep in mind if you want to the supply, you need to always have a look at the supply. You need to make sure that your units are attached before they attack. You need to look at the fields and do strategic decisions on where you want to do your fight. Having good positions to defend. For example, as a Russian would be always behind rivers to get the defense bonus defense bonus here, or rather force the Axis to have an attack malus when they attack you. Cities give good defense bonuses, etc., etc. So my goal would be to slow the advance now until my industrial base increases, and slowly slow the advance and then strike back. I'm not going to cover this today because one turn at this stage can take easily 1 hour. So you need a lot of time with it, and you need to think what you're doing and where you want to invest. Let me quickly just show you how that works with MPPs. For example, research. If I look at what Russia is investing heavily right now, we can invest a maximum research of 2,000 MPP actually, and we have currently invested 1,875. So already almost on the max. For example, if I wanted to put this, it will go over my research. I have only 125 points more I can invest, and so not much point here to do much actually right now. I could invest in aircraft defense, but that's not what I want to do. But for example, I could upgrade units that I haven't used yet, reinforce them, for example, which will cost MPPs. As if I reinforce them, bring them up to 10. Do this. I could upgrade this one, for example, from tanks level 1 to tanks level 2, which will make them much more combat efficient. Or this one, retreat them here. Got sustained a lot of damage. To combine shock army here. Yeah. So what I usually would do is first kind of try to destroy the tanks, focus on the tanks, that's the most efficient and most powerful units they have. For example, do a tactical bomber strike here. So they now have low moral. Let's see what I have. That's a fighter unit. You can see if I can get this close in to do. Okay, I can't attack it now. And damage here. Probably can't destroy it right now. We'll see. Let's first attack here. And wonderful, we already sustained heavy damage there. But we need to retreat here. So yeah. Anyway, I got caught up in playing already. It's very addictive. All right. We have played a little bit. I've upgraded units. It's always a note. If you place a new unit, place it in a city or in a high supply field, because the unit will gain the moral value of the field that's placed. So if you're in a let's say on a field placed on field with 7, it will start in the next turn with a moral of 70%. In 6 field 60%, and so on and so forth. So it's worth to place your new units in areas that have high moral, a high supply value. Same goes for upgrading and repairing. You can only repair units if they're in good supply fields. If you have, for example, in fields that are 5 and lower, you can only upgrade the unit to reinforce it up to I think max is 8 at 5, and you can't upgrade it. You can only reinforce to 8, and the moral will suffer. So it's worth, if you have damaged units, to retreat them to a place where there's high supply, exchange them with other units that have good moral, and keep the front instead of kind of attacking with under strength units. And also, if you have very low moral, meaning way below 50, it also takes longer for units to recover. So yeah, just a couple of hints here on playing. All right, I think I'll finish this little explanation video here right now. We'll also do a let's play on this, so you can enjoy a little bit watching a little bit how this works, this game actually, and when it's played. I think for the time being, it's okay for you if you've got interested in this kind of games. It gives you a good idea how does that work. It's a very deep and complex game. It looks simple, like moving units around, but there's lots of things to consider. The AI is very powerful. It also offers multiplayer support, so you can play with friends. And so one plays Axis, one plays Allies. So it becomes a real interesting challenge. It has play by email mode, so you do not have to play simultaneously. It doesn't make much sense playing together because, like I said, these turns can take easily an hour. One campaign, I would say, if you play from start to end, you can easily spend 100 hours. Yeah, I hope this video was interesting to you and incited a little bit your interest in this game. Like I said, I'm going to do a little Let's Play series for a couple of videos, a couple of hours to show you how gameplay works. Yeah, that from Captain Obvious. See you around, and thank you for watching. Bye bye.